Hi, good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of Crafting and Crime Daily, the show where I recap live trials. Currently, we are talking about the trial of Lori Vallow Daybell. She is on trial for the murder of her children, Tylee, Ryan. She was 17 at the time of her murder. J.J. Vallow, he was 7 years old at the time of the murder. And for the murder of Tammy Daybell, the wife of Lori's current husband. They got married 2 weeks after her murder, Tammy's murder. So yesterday I made a comment. How come she's not on trial for the murder of Charles? Well, Charles, her husband, Charles Vallow. Well, more to come. She is. This trial is the one occurring in Idaho. Apparently, she has a pending charge back in Arizona, Chandler, Arizona, for the murder of Charles Vallow and the conspiracy to commit murder of Charles Vallow. So, yep. I had to reach out to the East Idaho News reporter to get that clarified. And given one of the witnesses that it's on the stand today or yesterday, it all makes sense now. So Idaho took precedence. So she and Chad are being tried for these murders in Idaho and the conspiracy to commit these murders in Idaho, and then they will have to face the charges that are in Arizona for conspiracy to commit the murder of Charles Vallow. Now, I don't know about Brandon Boudreaux, about the attempted murder of Brandon Boudreaux. Could be that too. Who knows? They're in a heap of trouble. So how was your Wednesday night? Mine kind of sucked. Yeah. Anyway, every now and then you just have really bad days. Craft with Me Wednesday went okay. In fact, where's my paintings? I put them away. Let me get them out. So I was doing hummingbirds yesterday. So here's one that I did. This was like a practice one that I did before the live. And then I did a couple on the live. This is the one I'm kind of most proud of. I think it just turned out really cool. Look at the movement of the wings. Yeah, I'm moving the paper. Isn't that cool? So I had fun with that. Yeah, check that out. Now, I do want to tell you, though, if you are just tuning in for this trial, have no fear. It's all playlisted. You can go back on the playlist and watch this trial or my recap of this trial from the beginning. And it's kind of lengthy, but it gives you something to do while you're crafting. Maybe you're diamond painting or crocheting or watercolor painting or whatever it is you're doing, making clay pens. Or just going for a walk. You can listen. There you go. And if you think you have a friend that might be interested, share the link. You just hit share and you can send it over to them and say, hey, this trial is really interesting. It really is. So yesterday on the stand was a woman by the name of April Raymond, and she lives in Hawaii. Hula, hula, hula. Okay, it's not Friday yet. Maybe tomorrow we'll do a hula dance in honor of Lori Daybell because she just loved Hawaii. So I'm working on the diamond painting. I've turned it a different direction so I can kind of work on the sides here. This really pretty pink shimmery diamond. It's so pretty. Okay, so April Raymond, she and Lori met when Lori was living in Hawaii. The Kauai, is that an area of Hawaii? Kauai. I don't know. I don't speak Hawaiian. So they met through the church, through the Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints Church in Hawaii. They were part of a branch. And a branch is when you don't have enough people to make up a ward. it's done geographically. So you just call it a branch. So she met Lori when Lori joined the Church of Latter-day Saints in the same branch that she was in. And she and Lori would they did like this youth ministry through the church, and that's how they became fast friends. So Lori eventually moved back to Arizona, and they kept in touch. And then all of a sudden, in February of 2019, Lori unexpectedly calls and comes to visit April and says, hey, I'm here. I've left Charles. I've got Tylee with me, and we need a place to stay. So April says, hey, come stay with me. So they go over there. And some of the things that she explained to her friend April while she was visiting was that Charles had an affair, and this is why she was leaving Charles. Divorce. They were going to get a divorce. And that's what she told her initially. But after she was there a few days, got a little bit more comfortable, she started telling her, that she was the leader of the 144,000 that, Jesus had chosen her to be the leader. And she started talking about this light and dark scale, which April said is not something that you learn through the church. It's not a church belief. It's something that Lori and Chad made up, and she was not buying into it. She's like, no. But she said she just kind of listened to Lori. And she also said that Charles was inhabited by a demon named Ned Sinclair. Yep. And she said, well, how do you know this? How do you know she says, because he's shorter. I need coffee for that one. So after a short visit, Melanie Gibbs comes to Hawaii. So she gets a hotel room. So Lori goes over to stay with Melanie. Tylee flies back to Arizona where she has a job. So she goes back to Arizona. Now, apparently JJ was with Charles. And April understood that once they got the divorce, Charles would probably take custody of JJ, and she would, Tylee would stay with Lori. That was her understanding. So April did not know Melanie before Melanie came to Hawaii. So she comes over and she meets Melanie, and they all go to lunch, and a few times, not just one time, but a few times. And apparently she said Melanie had this same belief system that Lori had, and she said she felt it was like a subtle, what did she say? Grooming. She felt like she was being subtly groomed, but she very explicitly told them, listen, I'm not interested in this. No. Lori was saying that she believed she was a goddess. She did not mention any of the castings, she didn't talk about castings. And April said that too was not part of their church, this casting thing. So, yeah, so that was her testimony. Yeah, she just wasn't buying it. No. Which makes me wonder again, how involved is Melanie Gibb, and did she get immunity to testify? Because she seems a bit more involved than, yeah. So what April said was she thought that this was a belief system that Lori had espoused to, with this group that was getting together, the group that we've been talking about, that it's not something she learned through the church. So that was April's testimony. Now, the next person to testify was Police Detective Sandra Inclan. And she is a detective from Chandler, Arizona. Now, this is where Charles Vallow comes back into play. And I'm very surprised that the judge let this woman testify. There was a 404B objection. And what that is that the defense will say that this testimony is more prejudicial than probative. So after some debate, the judge did decide to allow this testimony to go forward, but very limited. He was not going to let them get into the actual results of this detective's investigation, which that's too bad because we know that it resulted in Lori and Chad being charged with conspiracy to commit the murder of Charles Vallow. So here's what happened. Detective Sandra Inclin, she gets a call. It's about 8:30, 8:45 that there's been a shooting. So she responds over to this neighborhood. She said when she got there, there was already an officer on the scene. Patrol officer was on the scene. And she saw Lori Vallow. She's not sure if she was there when she arrived or if she arrived shortly after that, but she did notice at some point Lori Vallow leaning against her car talking to a police officer. Very nonchalant, just kind of not emotional at all, and she really didn't even know who this was. So at some point, another detective, they're all assigned roles in the investigation. So another detective who was assigned with death notification, they decided they're going to bring Lori, and she was with Tylee, Lori and Tylee over to this one area that the firefighters have set up for witnesses and family. And they come over there, and he tells her that Charles was dead. And she's like, oh, I already knew that. She goes, I was there when it happened, which is the first time these detectives had heard that she was there when it happened. So the detective said she was very calm. At some point she was laughing, just really weird affect. Totally weird affect for someone who's even estranged husband just passed away. So this detective drove Tylee and Lori down to the police station to be interviewed. And she wanted to interview them separately. And then the other detective was going to interview Alex. So here's what Lori told this detective happened. It was around 7:30. Well, she had gotten a call the night before that Charles had arrived into town and he was going to stay in a hotel, and then she put him up in a hotel. That's what she says, because she didn't want him at her house. But he was going to come the next morning about 7:30, pick up JJ and take him to school. So he next morning comes, he's a few minutes late, which, irritates Lori. And he comes in, and now JJ he's ready to go. This is an autistic kid. He's very used to his routine. So they gather JJ up, and to Lori's description, she said JJ was a little reluctant to go with his father, but he did. So they're all outside getting, preparing for him to take JJ to school, and when Charles remembers that he left his cell phone in the house. So he goes back in to get the cell phone. It's at this point that Lori follows him in, leaving JJ outside, follows him in and says, hey, I got your phone. And he's like, I want my phone back. So now they're arguing about who's going to get this phone. And she's like, they're circling the kitchen. He's saying, give me my phone. She's like, no, I'm not giving you your phone. I don't know. She's just very juvenile. Well, then Tylee comes out of her room with a bat. And she's standing near her mother, and she's prodding Charles to keep away from her mother. She's trying to defend her mother. When all of a sudden, Alex, who Lori had him spend the night before, knowing that Charles was coming into town, she wanted some protection from Charles. So she had Alex spend the night. And remember, Melanie was there the day before. She had just left the day before. Yeah, let's not forget Melanie Gibbs. The innocent Melanie Gibbs. Anyway, so Alex grabs Charles from behind and pulls him backward. Charles gets a hold of the bat. Charles now has the bat, and he and Alex start fighting. Now, Lori doesn't talk about the gun. Like, at what point Alex went and got the gun or comes into the room with the gun. She does not say. She says it's at this point that she, because Tylee had left and gone out, she told Tylee, go out and sit with your brother. So Tylee goes out to be with her brother. Then Lori goes into the kitchen because I guess by now the altercation has moved to the living area. Lori's in the kitchen. She can't see what's happening, but she can hear, and she hears a gunshot. So she goes back out into the living room. She sees Charles lying on the floor. She sees Alex on the floor. And she says, I'm going to go take JJ to school. So she goes, well, actually what she said was she wanted to go out and be with her kids. So she goes outside, she sees her kids out there. So she decides she's going to take JJ to school. But she's got to stop at Burger King first because JJ likes chicken fries and Sprite. So she stops at Burger King, gets chicken fries and Sprite for JJ, and then proceeds to take JJ to school. Then afterwards, Alex calls her, and apparently not knowing what to do. And she's like, you need to call 911. Now, at no time during this trip to Burger King, through the drive-through, any of this, does she call 911. Nor she didn't make any effort to help her ex-husband who's lying on the floor after being shot. No, she's got to take JJ to school. So it's just crazy. So it's when she gets back that she sees that the police are all there. So there was a period of time after she leaves, goes to Burger King. I'm assuming that this shooting occurred between 7:30 and 8. The call doesn't come in to the police department until 8:30, 8:45. So there's a window of time where they're just sitting there watching Charles die, or Alex is, because Lori had to go take JJ to school. When she gets back, the police are already there, and this is the point where she just gets out of the car and she's standing there chit-chatting and laughing it up with one of the police officers. Oh, so inappropriate. Okay, I need to time and paint here. I can say that I did put down some drills here. Oh, these pink ones are so pretty. What else did she have to say? Let's see. So after this ended, the interview, the detective then interviewed Tylee. And she didn't talk about what Tylee said because that's all hearsay. But she said it was consistent with Alex's story and her mother's story. So there was nothing inconsistent about that. But now here's what the judge would not allow. On cross-examination, the defense said, was Alex arrested that day? Well, the judge allowed that question, and she said no. So you could tell from the questions that the prosecutor asked on redirect what she was getting at, but the judge was not going to allow this witness to answer. She said, it's not your job to make that decision about who's charged. Isn't it the prosecution? And the judge wouldn't allow her to answer that. But now the jury knows, this is not And then she said, you don't generally arrest somebody on the first day that you're investigating. And she's like, well, it depends on the situation, but not always. And so, the prosecutor, through asking the questions, got the jury to realize, what was going on here. Sometimes the more you try to keep out through objections, the more the jury learns. So I'm sure by now they know that all is not well in Charles Vallow land up in Chandler, Arizona. They may not know that who was actually charged, but I always wonder, do you think they go home at night and they think about it and they look it up? Like who? Like when I'm laying in bed at night with my iPad, nobody knows I'm on my iPad. Nobody's going to check if I'm a juror and I show up the next day. Interesting, huh? Yep. So that was yesterday's testimony. Now there was more from the other detective who brought in a lot of the financial records, and there was a lot more of that came into evidence. And really not much that I want to get into, doesn't add much to the story, but it is part of evidence. So this is becoming so interesting. Well, I'm trying to think what else, where else is this going? I don't know. I'm curious to hear if any of these other members of the group are going to testify. Also curious if they're going to get Chad to come in and try to testify, although he probably would just claim Fifth Amendment, so probably not going to bring Chad in to testify. And it does make you wonder, does the jury are they going, hey, where's Chad? How come Chad's not here? Why isn't she being tried with Chad? One of the reasons, I don't know if you recall, one of the reasons she is not being tried with Chad is because she asked for a speedy trial. Chad waived his right to a speedy trial, and in fact, his attorneys got a continuance because they wanted a chance to absorb all of the text messages and phone calls and really do a deep dive into that, because their client is still facing the death penalty. Lori is not facing the death penalty, and here's why. Because the judge ruled that the prosecution had violated a discovery order by not turning over information in a timely fashion to the defense so that the defense could properly defend against a death penalty case. Therefore, he was taking death penalty off the table. So Lori is not facing the death penalty, and it's because the prosecution screwed up during discovery. Yeah. They should have turned over some documents by the deadline, and they didn't do that. So that's okay. Maybe when she gets to Arizona, she'll be facing the death penalty there. I don't know. I don't think she's going to ever get herself out of jail. No. So if you guys have any questions based on everything you've seen or heard during my videos, please don't hesitate to put that in the comments. I always answer my comments, or I can address it in the next video. So I hope you guys have a fantastic Thursday. I hope I do too. I will see you guys in the next video. Bye.